Hi everyone, welcome back to Splash Page. I'm Sean, and there's been a lot of conversation around a specific scene from Invincible Season 1 that we've wanted to do a video on for a really long time. This scene had comic readers and show-only watchers equally confused. I'm of course talking about the opening scene for Episode 4, Eat Your Heart Out, Neil Armstrong. The scene that takes place in what looks to be the Egyptian desert. There's no indication of when this is happening, however we do see cars and industrial equipment, so we can assume it's either modern day, as in when the story is taking place, or 5 to 15 years before the story begins. We then get introduced to Siad, who first steps on a scorpion to prove what a badass he is, and then hides his tattoo. He plays a rugged, mean guy, and he yells at the team running the excavation of some ancient Egyptian tomb, and then he goes in. He was able to summon a mummy named Ka-hor from his tomb. The shot then cuts to the outside of the tomb, and we hear Siad scream. Right before the mummy can escape, a slab of rock that was blocking the tomb originally falls from the crane that's holding it up and blocks the door, apparently trapping the mummy in. This scene, as I mentioned earlier, happens to open the 4th episode of an 8-episode season, so we all assumed we'd find out more about this, but the show never went back to it. Robert Kirkman is an expert of setting up characters and plot lines. So what do we think this scene is about? Why was it included if it wasn't in the comics and we didn't go back to it by the end of season 1? Well, we have 2 theories on this scene. I'm going to start with the more fun one, and we'll end with the one that I suspect might be the real one. Theory number 1. Within the Invincible world, there are a ton of different themes, wild plot points, and characters. There are aliens and space travel, interdimensional travel, and multiverse realities. A number of monsters, other earthly beings that aren't human, mythical creatures, and DC Marvel level type hero characters. However, they don't have many classic horror villains showing up, and a mummy opens a door to that possibility. Mummies are known to carry with them curses. This is due to the excavation of King Tut's tomb, where shortly after that happened, there were a lot of strange deaths and occurrences for people involved and people involved's family. So shortly after that, there were movies that came out in the 30s, 40s, all the way up to the 90s with, again, our friend Brendan Fraser. Monster Girl is a 28-year-old woman who is cursed to turn into a monster, and upon returning to her human form, gets younger. We get this brief explanation in the books that Monster Girl slept with a young man on a trip to Europe, and the young man's grandmother saw this happening and put this curse on her. Which, sure, fine. I guess that is all the explanation that's needed when she's one of a dozen characters we follow. What if the show is retconning this and giving her a more interesting, more slowly drawn out beginning? We know the show has changed quite a bit to make it work better for viewing audiences, and this could be another item like that. In this situation, the scene would need to take place before the series began, but not too significantly. If Siad was Monster Girl's boyfriend or father, relative, brother, him disturbing the tomb, this could cause the curse to affect people that he loves. What if we were witnessing the origin of Monster Girl's curse? It would be a great way to wrap this into the overall story and have it connect to a character we really love. The second theory, unfortunately, the one that I think is more likely to be the case, needs a little bit of explaining before I can tell you why I think this is the case. For that, you have to know what a Shaggy Dog story or plot line is. A Shaggy Dog story is a long, rambling story or joke, typically one that is amusing only because it's absurdly inconsequential or pointless. So, what does this writer's joke have to do with the beginning of episode 4 of Invincible? Well, based on it having no basis in the comics, and the fact that we didn't hear about this storyline at the end of episode 8 when we get that montage that included a number of storylines that were still open. We have the Flaxens, we have the Martians, Battle Beast, Titan, but no mention of this storyline. And I have to admit, it made me feel like an idiot when I did, but as I mentioned earlier, when this mummy was trying to escape from the tomb and the storm hits, causing the slab of rock to drop and block the entrance, this scene is immediately followed by both Mark and Omni-Man flying over a desert. Omni-Man calls out that Mark is causing a dust storm. So if you guys were able to put those two scenes together, unfortunately my brain just didn't pick up on that. Mark caused the dust storm, causing that rock to fall, meaning that this took place in the same day that that story was happening. The nice thing about it is this dust storm does come back at the end of the episode when Mark is helping the astronauts escape from Mars. So this scene does pay off in the sense that we learn something and then it comes back later in the episode. The downside is that Siad and Ka-hor really get relegated to this minute-long clip, and we might not see them again. Now, I have seen on Reddit that Robert Kirkman does plan on bringing Ka-hor back, but I suspect that it's in yet another small, jokey role. I don't think this is going to be an important storyline to the future of Invincible. If anything, it's going to be a little joke, a little nod to the fact that they set up this great story and they're just not going to pay it off. Let us know what you guys think in the comic. Do you think that we'll get more on the story of Siad and the Mummy? Will it connect to any of our favorite characters? Or was it really just a little joke, a little insignificant story plot that was a fun way to introduce something that's going to happen at the end of the episode, and maybe we'll get one or two more mentions of them if it becomes something that Kirkman and the writers want to have involved later. Thanks for watching. I'm Sean from Splash Page, and as always, we'll see you next time. Take it easy, YouTube.